Hey everybody, and welcome to Tales from the Pythian. I am Greg. I'm here with my friends
Trip
and
Hugh,
and we are going to be talking today about character origins from the Unearthed Arcana released by Wizards about 2 weeks ago for the upcoming One D&D release in 2024. Go ahead and go down to the bottom down there, hit your subscribe button, hit your alerts. You're going to be coming back for more. This is our first show. You're going to love it. I love it. They love it. We all love it. Shout out to our producer, Kenny, who's back behind the camera. And I'll just say that these rules were written by Jeremy Crawford, who's the lead rules designer ever at Wizards, Christopher Perkins, who is the senior story designer, and Ray Winiger, who's a game designer / executive producer over there. So we appreciate those guys doing what they do, trying to make our game that we love better.
we appreciate the chance to provide some feedback, and exactly like the header of this says, shape the next version of D&D. That's cool. That's something that's never been offered before, or that they really haven't done in any form that I've known of. So
definitely, I agree with that 100%. You guys want to talk a little bit about us first, so they get to know us?
Sure.
Why don't you go ahead and start?
Give a D&D history.
Yeah, go for it.
I've been playing D&D since I think when I was about 12 years old. I had an uncle who definitely encouraged it and bought me a lot of the old player's handbooks back in the 1978 versions. Took a little hiatus for a while and came back to the 5th edition thanks to my buddy Greg here, who's encouraged us all to get back in it. But there's nothing like the realms of fantasy, and it's a good outlet and a good creative session all the time.
He's been playing D&D since it was uncouth to play D&D. Somewhat taboo.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Probably made it more fun.
Definitely more fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I could tell some stories.
So I've been playing since I was in high school, which we won't go into how many years ago that was, but most of my life for sure. I actually got into it. I had been exposed to it a little bit with some other kids growing up, but never really played a session that was DM'd and a good adventure until I met these fools. And we've been gaming together in some form or another, strategy warfare games, always back to D&D over the different versions of it and platforms. I remember introducing this guy to Baldur's Gate on computer.
Best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, and now we're playing Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, yeah.
And Solasta, which if you haven't checked those out, absolutely. Great way to learn a new edition, too. A lot of times those rule sets like Neverwinter or Solasta, just the mechanics of getting that new version down.
Absolutely. Yeah, good point on the Solasta especially. Very user-friendly for the beginner. So I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons since I was about 8 years old. I was introduced to it by a mutual friend of ours named Zane Johnson way back in the day. And then immediately started reading Dragonlance novels, and it was all downhill from there. But like Hugh mentioned, also big into strategy war games. You can drop Axis and Allies, Shogun, all those sorts of things. We currently have a game that you'll probably be hearing more about. We play over at Hugh's house every month. We play a little Star Wars game that's pretty cool. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. So the Unearthed Arcana 2022 character origins. We all decided to print out a copy against our better judgment, read through it, and take notes, and then we're just going to have a very open discussion about it. We'll try to keep it broken down into the 4 or 5 categories there: the races, backgrounds, languages, feats. There'll be some stuff that's worth talking about and some stuff that's probably not. But I have to say, out of the gate, guys, I like it.
Yeah, I'm a little on the fence with it. I honestly have to ask myself, why do you continually have to change things?
I see a lot of things here that show some promise. I see that hopefully, again, these lists aren't all inclusive, and they can expand further upon this and provide more options, especially like with the backgrounds and things. But that's also for players to do. This isn't supposed to be the Bible.
Yeah, they're definitely going to get cleaner as time goes on. I'm sure they'll dig in and do like they've done before, and you'll have a great graphic book to go along with it. But I do have to ask myself the question, why? I feel like with the 5e, they've really capitalized on a lot of good quality playable material. They've figured a way to take all the previous editions and kind of just pull it all together. And obviously the fan base has increased extensively over the years, especially since 2014 when the 5th edition came out. Because I played a little 4th edition for a while. I was a little turned off to that one. It was real more tabletop, miniature oriented, but you can take that back all the way to the excuse me. You can take that back all the way to the classics, with the original Gary Gygax and TSR version.
Very true. Very true. Well, one of the first things that kind of got me going, and it's a little bit ahead, I'm not going to try to skip ahead, but I love the different emphasis they've put on the backgrounds themselves. That's one of the big things. But let's I get ahead. Let's talk about humans for a minute, because I'm very curious to hear what Hugh's got to say about humans.
Well, back to the first of all, you got children of different or humanoid kinds.
Yeah,
So you can
definitely.
match
about that.
anything.
This is true.
And when we look at races, I mean, yeah, the list starts with humans. Yeah, so we can go down the line. But yeah, this whole idea that you can be a half orc, half halfling.
Half
you know.
anything. I didn't realize all the races could interbreed like that. Originally I thought it was like orc and human and elf, but now I guess they can
dwarf.
all.
Yeah, that was never a thing in the past, but I guess.
The wizard's getting a little weird out there.
Dragonborn. Yeah, we half Dragonborn.
Half dragonborn, half halfling. Do you have a 4-foot tall scaled creature that breathes fire and 15-foot
Well,
cones?
so the way it actually reads is that you're going to take your game traits.
From one side or the other?
Yeah, from one halfling, a gnome parent, you might choose halfling for your gnome traits and then decide that your character has the pointed ears or the characteristics of a gnome. So basically, like, appearance things are going to be fluid, but, it's not going to give you any kind of mechanical advantage.
No, definitely not.
It's just role-playing, which is cool. Flavor,
They did make it a little bit more open for you being able to do that as well, by making you have the ability, as some of the humanoids, to be small or medium.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have
That
to.
was an interesting ad.
Right.
That's going to be the first thing about the human that I have. This is 2 feet tall.
I promise you, I will have a Tyrion Lannister at my table before 2 months are out. When this
So
goes
humans are incredible, but it does bring up some interesting just logic things, like so humans, medium, about 4 to 7 feet tall, or small, 2 to 4 feet tall. It's a 5-foot range between a 7-foot guy and a 2-foot guy, and then the same movement speed. Nothing's a factor.
That's interesting,
No.
isn't it? Yeah,
That's a good point.
because
What kind of stealth advantage for a 2-foot tall thief?
that's a good point. Do they have? Yeah, they have the size. So we have 30 feet. So the dwarf we would expect to be 25 feet, but a dwarf is actually 30 now.
All of them are
Number
30.
30?
So there's
Yep,
no
they've changed them all.
halflings. They're all speed 30 feet. Now the wood elf is still 35 feet.
So if you're
It's the bonus.
3 feet tall and your companion's 7 feet tall, you're just moving right along.
That's a lot of footsteps.
That's a lot of
compared
footsteps.
to that 7-foot guy.
So, I remember, Hugh, we were talking initially when we saw this, and we were talking about the variant human. I would argue that every human is now variant human with this rule.
They haven't provided this little list of, again, don't think it's totally inclusive, but this short list of first level feats. I imagine they're going to take all the regular feats, mobility,
Assign levels to them.
yeah, minimum level requirements, or
Yep.
or
Does it stack?
back in the day, to be a defensive, or to get like a weapon master, you had to be of a certain intelligence,
Right.
because you had to know expertise, different styles, things like that.
And they don't refer to it as stacking, right? They refer to it as repeatable. So
Yes,
repeatable
so feats
feats.
become repeatable now.
Yeah. So if you take a 3rd level feat of, say,
Well, on the
short
list that they
swordery,
provided, it's only the magic initiates. But that's all down the line. We'll get into that. We're on
Yeah.
humans. So the biggest difference immediately is going to be the resourceful. You gain an inspiration whenever you finish a long rest.
which is pretty interesting.
But
But
as
it
we
also
get-
kind of takes away from the inspiration.
Well, as we get further down the line, you're going to find inspiration isn't what the way we're playing it now.
No,
No.
that could be the case.
Yeah,
but
it changes the rules.
You
definitely
literally
changes.
have to decide before you roll if you will use your inspiration point to gain advantage on the next attack.
I wonder if they changed that because they thought inspiration was a little too powerful.
A little too reactive, you know?
I don't
You
know. It's already discretionary, right? So there's one. Everybody has one, and
We
in
do?
in the
Not until he gives it
We
to
got
me.
to, yeah, the DMs
no,
got-
I mean you have
get
the ability.
awarded
You have the
an
ability
inspiration.
to have one currently, and rules is written 5e, right? You have the ability to have one, and once you have it, what I found is a lot of times players are reluctant to use that inspiration because they're waiting for the moment
Oh,
when they
yeah.
need to use it. But then what is also happening in that instance is you're losing the ability to gain more
You're making it a scarce
inspiration
commodity.
because because everybody that sits at my table is an excellent role player, and I constantly want to do something to let them know that hey, you're doing a good job. But I think that the way that we're
Well,
going
I
to see
think
that it changes.
Since Greg read this, we recently already have rolled in if you have one and you're awarded another, you can assign it to another
Yes.
player.
That's
Right.
right. That's
Which I
right.
like
Wizards,
that.
we are listening.
We've already rolled that in, and I love that. And it also, as we get further down, initiative is now lost upon a long rest. Inspiration is now lost upon a long rest. So yeah, it's not just getting one and banking it until you crit or crit miss.
Which kind of goes past, I think we
Okay.
had some discussion previously about does that mean that a human wakes up with inspiration and then can just pass it if they already have inspiration? But no, because it's lost.
Because
at
it's
There's
Also
the other thing. You can't have one human fuel on the party.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, skillful, that plays into a lot of the versions of humans being highly skilled, versatile, the whole first level feat of your choice. Yeah. That was a big part of why you played a human a few versions ago was that, a fighter got a feat every other level and a human got one every 3 and got one at first. And so a human fighter was always leading the forefront of what you could possibly muster off as far as stacking feats, cleave, power, attack,
right at the
third
beginning.
edition stuff.
expertise, on that way to great cleave or something even faster. And gnomes used to get stuff focused around illusion. So a ninth level gnome illusionist was going to smoke anybody that wasn't 10th, when it came to illusions.
So the way I'm reading this is a human has 2 feats at first level.
Skilled feat or another. And there's the thing, versatile, you gain the skilled feat or another first level feat of your choice. Now, has it gone on to say that all characters are going to get a feat at first level?
You get a feat from your background.
You're right. So a human, you're
A human-
absolutely right.
a
A
human
human
will
can
get-
stack the extra feats with the background.
Sure.
That's why I say I
Yeah.
think that now all humans are technically
That
variant.
variant human.
variant human.
Especially with the stat assigning, it used to be humans got a +1 to everything. And when you went alternate or variant human, you chose a +1 to only 2 stats. And now they're going to get the full benefit. Everybody gets, due to their background, +2 to 1 and +1 to another.
Or +1 to 3,
Which is
interesting.
We'll jump ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? That it's not coming from your races, that it's coming from your background. I mean,
That I think kind of took away from the races when you did that, because now just being a race and not gaining any kind of an ability score improvement because you are that race, the background makes sense also, but it seems like that should stack on top of. But then you'd be talking about some pretty powerful first level characters coming in. They do give you an option later on where they talk about going back to the original rules out of the 5th edition core books and using the racial bonuses. But if you do that, then
you
you don't
forgo
use,
these.
you forego the background bonuses.
Yeah, they mentioned Tasha's.
They said it was backwards compatible,
Yeah.
right?
Ultimately, this is what the DM and the table has to agree on,
Oh, it
And
does.
like you said,
yeah.
That's a really good point, and that's a big thing I
These
have.
are
Like I have
all
a big
suggestions.
beef with a lot of the. No offense, because I watch a lot of you guys, but some of the creators out there that get really up in arms about some of these changes. Ultimately, the way the game is designed is that you can choose and pick and cherry pick what you want in your game,
Absolutely.
and homebrew and all these sorts of things. So you don't, if you don't like it, fix it,
Yeah,
right? So it works for you.
yeah. Draw inspiration from where you do and omit
build,
what you
build
don't.
your campaign the way you want to build it and use the rules to build your campaign.
Yes,
You know,
yes, definitely.
So looking of course, the next is going to be the new race, the Ardling.
The Ardling.
Yeah, I got a big thumbs down on that one.
A cousin
Uh-oh.
to the Asimir, we would say.
I know they got rid of the Asimir, which I'm playing one currently in Hal Chorus, and I actually have enjoyed playing that character. But the Ardling, the thing that's got me is, well, maybe I don't know enough about where they come from, but the animal head thing, I'm just not getting it.
Really? I'm excited to
You
see
know.
like a 2 foot tall pug faced monk. You know. I think that brings in.
I'm just, I got a big why over here. An Ardling has a head resembling that of an animal. I'm sure there's players out there that would quite enjoy that, but for me, I just not. It's not sinking in. I'm not
Owl
grasping
head?
it. You're kind of
Wise.
limited.
Well, again,
your,
this
your
is their
choices.
suggestions.
Yeah, well, your choices are based on your celestial
Might not want to
legacy.
go with an octopus head though. You might get. It'd be hard to walk through town.
Well, you could be
People think that
mistaken
you're
as
a
a
mind
mind
flayer.
flayer.
May I remind you that a human is an animal?
Oh Lord.
An Ardling with a human head. I mean, I feel like the Ardling is a counterbalance to the Tiefling. Not a counterbalance, but just
A cousin.
Well, that was kind of how I saw the Asimir. Was it balanced that out? The things that throw me off is literally just the suggestion of animal heads. It's just, it reminds me of like Animal Farm, the book. So.
Miss Piggy.
they get the
Oh, the
angelic
Muppets.
flight.
There we go. We're playing Muppets now, right?
They get the angelic flight.
Well, I mean, there's enough of that in 5e. We
Yes.
have the turtle race, the cats, the
Tabaxi,
birds,
yeah.
the Ninja Turtle as you want.
They do get the flights, and
They
they
get the
got
flight.
flying pigs and flying goats. Yes,
It's the same mechanic, isn't it?
it is.
Okay. I'm curious. I personally, I'm with you, Trip.
Yeah, I think
would.
it is the same mechanic.
I feel like
If given the choice between this and an Asimir, you're playing an Asimir.
Yeah.
well, I mean, they could have just put the Asimir in here
They could have.
and not done, and then maybe added a suggestion that they
That's-
could.
that's
But,
why
the
I
first
don't-
time I saw Dragonborn or Red, I was like, I can play a Draconian? What?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's become pretty accepted,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, you can play an orc now. You can play a goblin. You can play
Yeah,
any of
good-
the humanoid
good
races
point.
practically.
years ago, playing an orc or a half orc was a
Mm-mm.
stretch.
It was, yeah. I mean, the half orc the half orc made sense, but there again, we go back to the fact that all the races can interbreed now. So it's going to be a wild looking world.
There will never be a town in my world that is a lawful good orc town ever.
It wouldn't make sense, right?
No.
It's hard to grasp.
Never going to happen. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be down on orcs, but because I like them.
Yeah.
They're really good to smash squishy first level PCs with, right? But you have to have a threat, and a lot of times that sort of a thing makes the threat kind of globally identified.
Right.
Orcs are bad. Goblinoids are bad. Giants are generally bad. They're just generally bad. But yeah, so the legacies: exalted, heavenly, and idyllic. So you have the chaotic, the lawful, and the neutral. Again, they when we get to the tiefling, they changed it. It's in the exact diametric opposite.
Chaotic, evil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just good in this case. So
Spells, access first, third, and fifth. You got damage resistant to radiant damage.
that's big. I
That
think,
is big.
right.
That is big.
I think the Asimir has that as well,
Mm-hmm.
but that is a big deal. Anytime anytime a playable race has a resistance like that, that's pretty big. Like the dwarf is poison or whatever. But another thing I just want to point out, because this is the first one that we're getting to. So they're calling it Celestial Legacies, right? And I wrote beside of that lineage ? Right? Because we're getting rid of allegedly races, right? Air quotes, sub races. We're doing it. That was in the video. That was Chris Perkins. I think it was Chris Perkins that said that. Bald guy with the baseball cap. We're getting rid of it. You're just going to have, he said, the dwarfiest dwarf. We just went into it. We're going to make the dwarfiest dwarf, and hill dwarf, mountain dwarf. That's appearance and profiling. Okay. So understand that this is a little bit
But
different.
we still have a high alpha drow and a wood elf.
Right. Yes.
We have gnome lineages as well,
And gnome, yep.
right?
Yep. You still got the rock gnome and the forest gnome.
Yeah, so I want to know what's the difference. Why keep that with elves? Is it because drow are more popular than hill dwarves? I would venture to say yes. They sell more books, don't they? Right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Everybody's always down on the dwarves.
Is it that, or are they just that much fanboys of the elves?
Well-
Probably, yeah, probably the fanboy of the elf. That's what it is.
Probably. I might be guilty of being a fanboy for the elves, but carrying on with lineages, the next one on the cards, the Dragonborn. Again, when we get down to it, the draconic ancestor, right? Still, technically, it might not be. They might not view it as a sub race, but I see it kind of in that light. It determines a specific ability that you have because you are of that line, right?
Yeah, it'd be difficult to take that away from the Dragonborn. Otherwise, you're just really a walking lizard.
Yeah.
It seems like and again, these versions aren't a final version, but now it's all a cone breath weapon attack. There used to be some line options, like a 30 feet ray or line versus a cone.
Yeah, the lightning bolt would have been in a line.
Which, let's see, cold, fire, poison. Yeah, they've got lightning, but it's now a cone. Yeah.
Yep.
And resistance to matching damage according to your ancestry trait. Use most of this stuff. It's interesting. The verbiage is the same on a lot of these. You
Yes.
can use this, but then there are things that are currently in play, which an example or two will come up, and they switch to some other verbiage. And then a little further in the document, they go back to like what's currently in play. And for newer players, I almost wish they'd pick for all these things that operate similarly, like Magic Initiate Warlock and the spells that you learn. And one of them will say something to the effect of you can cast this through this trait once per short rest. And you alternately you can also spend a spell slot of the appropriate level and cast this. Which is currently it's written as you can cast this like once per day without expending a spell slot.
Yes.
So why are we dipping back and forth between this, explain, and those are all the same effect? And I can see new players not understanding that,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I have a feeling we're going to see this come back in a few months, like a re-release, or maybe in a year, right? As we get closer, maybe.
And who knows? It could be that they put this out. They've already announced the next content that they're going to re-release, and then depending on if some things only have light changes, maybe down the road, all the first 1, 2, and 3 things that they put out are put back out adjusted.
Yeah.
And you could even highlight or italicize what's been corrected so that people could easily start picking up the difference. And even if they never ask us again what our feedback is.
Well, I think
Well, getting input from the
from the community.
from the community is going to be great, and I would agree. I'm pretty sure they got to take it, absorb it, rewrite it, add
and
to
you're
it,
going to come up with.
evolve on it.
They're going
and
to get
send
so
it
many
back out.
varied.
And
They're going to get so many
Oh,
varied
yeah, for
responses.
sure.
You get 10 rogues in a room and give them a trap or an obstacle. They're going about it 8.5 different ways.
That's right. Back to the Dragonborn, I think really there's nothing else has changed to me. It didn't look like really anything else had changed.
I don't believe so. I've never played a Dragonborn, but I don't think any of these abilities are any more than what the other.
But
Yeah.
the next
5e
entry,
has.
dwarfs, we've got
Oh
some,
yeah, we
some
do have
huge
some,
changes.
There's
we
some
got
big stuff with
changes there.
dwarf.
These
Yeah.
dwarves move 30 feet.
30
Yeah.
feet. So we
Yeah.
got 5 more feet around. I love the stone cunning. I love the change to the stone cunning and providing the tremor sense.
I like it. I do. I miss the fact that you can't tell how far deep underground you are, and you can't miss sloping passages, or can't determine sloping passages anymore. I always thought that was just kind of a cool trait. And the
And it
dwarf
wasn't
the
it
only
also
thing.
determined.
The only thing that had it, and that goes all the way back.
And
to
it was also
first
pretty
edition.
obvious to you whether this was a naturally occurring cave or worked, or
Right.
and whether or not it was dwarven stonemasonry versus
Yeah, that was the
human.
I would say like so if you then look at the Forge Wise ability where you get to take two proficiencies, two of the tool proficiencies. I would say you got allowed to be able to do that as a DM with like a mason's tools or something. I don't know, or maybe even
Your background, you were a mason.
or you were cutting mines in Mirabar, or you
Even
know,
so much as a laborer or something.
It definitely
Yeah.
makes the dwarf probably the most tool proficient race out there. By
Tool
the time
proficient,
by
yeah.
the time you do that, and then you
Yeah.
pull in a background, and you're gaining another tool proficiency.
yes,
you
Well,
know.
but above all this is the dwarven toughness.
yes, that's pretty awesome because it aggregates over
Yeah.
time. Yeah, that, you know,
And that's a
one up
nod
level.
to second or second edition, 2.5, second and a half, 2.5. You know, dwarves used to be, well, they get toughness for free, right?
Third edition was toughness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But that is, I saw that. I actually missed that the first time I read through it. I only caught that today, and I was like, wait a minute, let me read this again.
Now, the fact that we're all just dwarves, there's no more mountain dwarf, gold dwarf, hill dwarf.
Yeah, I think that takes away from just the dwarven character. I mean, you're funneling everything into one race. I liked having
And that was
the
such-
opportunity to.
That was so
to
well
pick a
established. Why you would
sub-race.
do away
Yeah.
with that and hang on to the elves, I'm not sure.
Why are you looking at me?
That's a
For-
good question. I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's
I
a
mean-
good question. I don't know why they would have taken that away. I don't know what the thought process is
I was
there.
looking for some kind of.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. It's one of the few that don't have the lineage tag to
Right.
it, right? Like, I mean, I can see why for the Ardling, right? Because you're giving it innate spell casting ability, right? You have a cantrip at first level, depending on which one of those legacies you take, and then you get a spell at third, and you get a spell at fifth, right?
Sure.
Well, you
They
know,
do the
that
same
does
thing
seem
for
to
the-
be the driving force behind the legacy. Is you're getting some kind of a mechanic bonus, whether it's a spell versus the dragon's fire breath.
Yep.
You know, the breath weapons.
Yep.
But I guess they couldn't think of anything to give the dwarf.
You're going to see a repeating cycle there with the Ardling, the Tiefling, the Gnome, the Elf. They all, I think, the Halfling has got some pretty interesting
Well,
stuff
the
going
gnome
on.
with the prestidigitation
Yep.
devices. So you have
But
a
you have a
lighter, you can have
Deep Gnome,
a
a
iron for your flow.
Forest Gnome, freaking,
Yeah.
like 3 gnomes.
Right.
But the Dwarf, nah.
Nah, you just got a dwarf.
You
now,
got a Dwarf.
and that's it.
Is that racist to say all dwarves look alike?
I don't know. Ooh, edgy.
You're from the mountains or you're from the hills? You know.
Yeah, I think far and away though, Stone Cunning for me. That's my vote. Stone Cunning's the best add to that, for sure. I'm with Trip on taking away. I'm not a fan. I think it's
If you've
maybe
made
just
it this
the
far
old
into this
school.
podcast and you don't know what an elf is,
Yeah, so straight into it. Lineages, right? Drow, High Elf, Wood Elf, and each one has a different ability based on, where they're from, basically. So you're saying Drow are subterranean predominantly. High Elves come from the Fae. What is it? How does it word it? I'll find it, but it references a Fae ancestry, sort of a thing, but beyond Fae ancestry. And then the Wood Elves have the Druid craft cantrip. But why couldn't you do that for a dwarf? I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on that.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's more disappointment than criticism, I guess.
It is. I'd agree to that because I just like the fact of the sub races for the dwarf. I think it allowed you to build into your character. Now you're limited to building your character off a background. Now, you take a creative player, but you take a new player, it's just kind of like, all right, I'm a dwarf. I mean, that's like pulling up the basic edition and saying you're a dwarf. And
Basic edition was fun.
it was fun, but basic and expert and all, when you were a dwarf, you were just a dwarf.
Dwarf.
So
so this the spells that are going to be grafted, gained according to your lineage is similar to the Celestial Legacies. An interesting thing is that they're saying that intelligence, wisdom, or charisma is your spellcasting ability for the spells you cast with this trait. Choose when you select the lineage. So again, you could be a cleric with access to detect magic and misty step, and wisdom be your casting. That's fantastic.
So you're getting the +1, +2, or 3 +1s to put on your
These are
ability
just basically
scores.
added to your list.
But then you get to select, and I guess that's based on. It doesn't matter what your class
your
is.
primary, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean, your lineage is your lineage now. It's
Right.
not tied to any of that, right?
that's true. So for that matter, you could be a paladin, and whether your wisdom or charisma is higher, choose that to cast these spells.
Right.
You know, according to your.
I think another little interesting tidbit is in the under elven lineages under the high elf. It's the only one that says that you can replace the cantrip with a different cantrip from the arcane spell list. Everybody else has what they has what they have, but that one you
That's a
can.
powerful ability.
It's a high elf.
Well, that's
Yeah,
currently
but that's
they
a
get a free
power-
cantrip.
Yeah, you get a free cantrip, but you get every time you take a long rest, you can change it.
Change your cantrip.
And the other interesting wording there is you could be a cleric and choose the firebolt cantrip and use your wisdom. That's pretty effective.
So, not sure that. So, trance is the same. Keen senses, Fey ancestry. It's pretty much really just the lineages are adjusted a little bit there. And of course, there's no more half elf, right? We're not going to touch on half elf because when we get to the.
Mechanically, you're a human or an
You're a
elf.
human or an elf. Yeah.
Right.
There's no more half and half. So, if you want to have that Tannis half elven appearance, pick the human side so you can grow a beard, and there you go. You have pointy ears. You're a pointy-eared human.
Right.
You are not an elf. You don't have dark vision. You don't, because that's how it reads, right? You pick the
Yeah.
that's how it
Yeah.
reads. So that's
You pick the look or you pick the mechanics.
yeah, for sure,
You
absolutely.
get one or the other.
Yeah, take
Or
your
well, you
pick.
get
No,
you,
you
pick
pick
the
the
look.
mechanics of one. And
You pick the
take
mechanics of
whatever you
one
want.
and the look of the other.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
I like
You
that.
could- you
for a
could be
house
the-
rule.
big burly looking half orc and just have human traits.
Trip, I have a question. What the hell is the difference between a rock gnome and a forest gnome and a hill dwarf and a mountain dwarf? Besides the fact that they're gnome and dwarf.
I don't know that I have an answer for that.
I don't
honestly.
either, but again, when we hit the gnomes, we have gnome lineages.
Yes.
And we do have forest gnomes, and we do have rock gnomes.
Yes.
And we have magic involved in it again. Cantrips again. And I believe it's just cantrips, right? There are no spells that are associated with that. Don't believe so.
Well, you get to speak with animal,
And we have the cunning,
which is a spell for the forest gnome.
which don't tell Jose, but I don't think he uses his gnomish cunning very much.
Advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws.
Mm-hmm.
And that's current.
I'm pretty positive it is. Pretty positive it is.
That's pretty powerful.
I will look while we're chatting subliminally over here, but yeah. So forest gnome, you know the minor illusion cantrip, and you can speak with animals.
And so here we're getting into that wording just the way they're doing it. You can cast this. You can cast it with the trait a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. You can also use any spell slots you have to cast it. So again, I realize that's a little different. This one's triggering off your proficiency bonus, but later on in some of the feats and other thing or the traits, it's saying you can cast it from this trait versus you can cast it without spending a spell slot.
You got your option. You can get it once a day for
Well-
free, and then you can turn around and use a spell slot and cast it again. That's a whole lot of talking to animals. They must be hanging out with ardlings.
Yeah. So I mean, first level character, your proficiency bonus is a +2,
Yes.
and then it climbs to +5 by level 20.
And just to drop back
Yeah.
and verify, gnome cunning is current raw.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but again,
don't tell 'em.
it's the wording that they jump around some about. Again, this doesn't specifically say without using a spell slot, whereas other
Correct.
ones do. You can, through the use of this trait, not without spending a spell slot versus your proficiency bonus a number of times per long rest. They need to find something to tie all that together and not make it a little more clear.
Yeah, definitely keep it clear.
Yeah, I did drop the note clarify beside of that. It was a little confusing.
So I guess it just if you're not a spellcaster, then the spell slots word verbiage is irrelevant,
Yeah.
totally irrelevant.
Right.
Yeah, you
But-
just have the so many times per your proficiency bonus per long rest. But if you are, you now know it's part of your known spells.
Yes,
You can use it to spell slots as normally to cast it.
which could be pretty confusing, but to somebody that was new, for sure.
But again, how much talking to? Are you a
Yeah,
zookeeper?
Exactly. You know, I mean, how many animals are you going to run across that you got to talk to? I mean, that's a lot of talking to. Well, I guess, creative players, like I'm talking to the mouse and talking to the squirrel, and, what's the
Crosby.
pig know that's Uncle Tom's farm,
Like Silence Druid from the Greater Blade of Virtue game that would get the mice in town and speak with them and go send him messages.
Steve Irwin.
Halfling. What you got on halfling? What do you think about the halfling?
Isn't the halfling pretty much the same? Did they really? I don't know that they actually changed anything. You still got the luck. Still naturally stealthy.
And under luck, that's the first time I think we see the reference of on a D20 test.
I think that's the big difference right there, because now we have 1s and 20s being incorporated into the rules. So a homebrew rule that's been at every Dungeons and Dragons table probably forever,
Yes.
finally making it into the books, which then makes luck a little bit different, I think, because it's saying when you roll a 1 on the D20 of a D20 test.
Only true.
Right.
Yeah, you have to roll a 1 to activate this.
Yeah, so the only way that a halfling can fumble is to roll 2 1s in a row.
Right. He's got to
Now-
fumble twice.
You don't fumble on checks in my game, right? There's no critical failure for
consequence
an
for-
investigation check. Yeah,
just failure.
it's just.
Yeah.
But because of the verbiage D20 test, a roll to hit is a D20 test.
With that being
Mhm.
said, in your games, one in combat,
That's
on a
a-
weapon attack, that's a whole different thing.
That's a whole different thing.
Bowstrings are breaking,
Yeah, that's right.
what blades are snapping,
Yep.
and dropping weapons.
And as written, it says when you roll a 1 on the D20 for an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll the die and you must use the new roll. But I homebrew that, and if you roll anyone in combat, that's a
fumble.
it's a critical miss.
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
A,
So
because
you're,
that kind of
are
makes
you going to allow the halfling to re-roll his 1?
Well, I haven't had a halfling in my game, so
while.
the
I mean, over the years, you most certainly have.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
fifth
But I mean,
edition.
like with the
Yeah.
new rule, with
With
the
the new-
luck.
I would definitely allow the player to argue their point, and I would give it a go if it became to where I thought it was just like breaking. Which how often do you roll a 1 anyway? Right? Not very often.
Yeah, it happens.
That it happens, right? But you have to take the second one, so there's always that chance, right? It's kind of like rolling with advantage and rolling 2 18s.
I know every time
Right.
I roll
You
a
know.
1, I'm like, I'm going to take halfling luck. That's
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe I would. I guess I would. I would give it a go and just see how it was. But yeah, and
nimbleness, naturally stealthy.
naturally
all
stealthy is
general-
new. Yeah,
Is
Yeah,
it?
all
Oh.
general stuff we associate with halfling.
proficiency in the stealth skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's the big one, boys. This is the big one. Orcs.
All I can say is I miss the half orc. Now that you want to put orcs in there, but
So there's a big difference in these orc abilities too, right?
isn't it kind of a blend of what the half orcs traits were?
Sure.
Yeah.
Adrenaline rush. Take the dash action as a bonus action. When you do so, gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. A number of times equal to your proficiency bonus to the long rest. I mean, that's new.
That's pretty serious because you could continually take that every round until you use up all your proficiency bonuses. So you could stack up temporary hit points.
So you get powerful build now, right? That was not part of the half orcs, right? Powerful build is what. So that you count yourself a size larger for carrying capacity. So that's what Bo's character has in the Ravenloft campaign.
Okay.
The Furball has
Furball's
powerful
got
build. Yep. Yeah, and relentless endurance. The half orc did have relentless endurance, so that kind of stays the same. I do not see the adrenaline rush. Again,
Oh, it's at the top of that, under first thing under lifespan.
I mean in the
from
as written.
the half orc
the
didn't
raw.
have it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the relentless endurance.
And and that adrenaline rush is definitely something that there are definitely monsters in the monster manual, including the orc, that can do that, which is pretty awesome.
I thought there's one statement here at the bottom of the second paragraph in the description of orcs that I was a little unclear on its purpose. So, inspired by those tales, young orcs often wonder when Grumsh will call on them to match the heroic deeds of their ancestors, and if they will prove worthy of the one-eyed god's grace. I didn't realize Grumsh gave grace.
So I have a lot that I could say on this. Okay.
You've done some studying on orcs here.
I
over the
have
last
done
year
some
and a
studying
half.
on the orcs, using.
They can be very graceful nowadays. Plus 2 decks.
Yeah, using Volos. I think it was Volos. There's Groomsh is not a good deity. There is no grace. There are no. I mean, heroic deeds are. It's a very arbitrary statement, right?
Right.
With
A
the
heroic deed to an orc.
village is a vile act to the human society. It's
Right.
inflicted
Yes.
upon.
Yeah, like that's exactly right.
A
Raising
tragedy.
the village is a heroic deed
To an orc.
To an orc.
Right.
Stopping that is a heroic deed for the hero,
Right.
which shouldn't
Well.
be a monstrous creature.
Well, are you a privateer or are you a pirate?
There you go.
In these
right?
waters versus this nation, I'm
Right.
a privateer.
So how do you pull that into your campaign if the player's like, hey, I want to play a lawful good orc paladin? Well, you're obviously not following Grumsh
No,
anymore.
no.
You're changing your deity immediately.
No. I don't even. I would have to.
Hold on,
really
Drizzt was a lawful. Drizzt was a good drow.
chaotic good drow ranger.
Yep.
Still not lawful good, right? And you have your outliers, sure, right? But you're not going to be.
I guess you're absolutely. You touched on something really good there. To be a lawful good and be one of these races, you follow the laws of wherever you're at. Like you respect their cultures, and that's a stretch.
Yeah, and when an alignment doesn't quite mean what it used to mean either, there's not as heavy of a reliance on it.
That's
you
worthy
know,
of note. So
yeah.
far, there's been nothing.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that there's probably going to be some things that I'm never going to get my head around because I've been playing for so damn long,
Right.
right? And when you start thinking about it, you're like, okay, well, I don't want to add another mechanic, but role playing wise, this makes sense to me in my
But
brain.
This is interesting, though. We're having this conversation about orcs. We'll look right after tieflings.
Tiefling.
Ooh.
Yeah. All right. So
Well.
here we go. We broke it up again. Now we have 3 lineages of a creature.
Races.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're not calling them sub races. We're going to call them lineages, which really means that of all of these that we've looked at, because isn't Tiefling the last one?
Tiefling should be the
Yeah.
last one.
So of all
and
of
it
them
has
that
a
we've looked
lineage.
at, it's halflings, humans, and orcs are the only 3.
And dwarves.
Dwarves, 4,
Yeah.
right?
That-
So humans don't have a lineage.
Ah,
Orcs don't have a lineage. Dwarves don't have a lineage. And there you go. So, all right, Tiefling.
Well, it's okay that orcs don't have a lineage because we know they all came from Grumsh.
That's
So
right.
there's only one lineage. there,
Grumsh, one eye. And I
Well, maybe that's
recommend
what
you
it
look
is
at the
with the
lore.
dwarves, but-
Look at the lore on that. Yeah. All right, so this is interesting. You have abyssal, cathartic, and infernal. So basically, lawful evil, neutral evil, chaotic evil. And then we get the fiendish legacy, which kicks us down into, again, cantrips and 3rd and 5th level spells as we're gaining level. And then the otherworldly presence basically gives another bonus cantrip, kind of like the Ardling did. It's literally, they're the same but different,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, different sides of the same coin.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, that's it. There's nothing Nothing that stands out. I did like that they referred to sigil, which is from Planescape setting,
Right.
which I haven't heard anything about since
In a hot minute.
that's a long time ago. So I wonder if that's like a little bit of an Easter egg in there from Wizards, making reference to sigil. All right, this is where I think it gets fun. Backgrounds. All right, I love that they're taking the backgrounds, the origins, and all of that stuff up out of the game, and they're encouraging everybody to make a background. I love that. Now you have the option, right?
Basically, all options exist. You can build a
Yep.
background, you can select the pre-made, or you can select the pre-made and omit whatever you don't like and replace it with.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Replace
Yeah.
the language. Replace
So, I mean,
the
that's as
skill
loose as it can get.
proficiencies.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
why I love that as a DM. I like to give my characters an investment in the story. I like to take from what you've written and put it into the game somewhere. Maybe it's not part of the main quest. Maybe it's a side quest, right? Like we had Sky's Duel's
Right.
background was
Yeah.
awesome. We had Danny's background with what was the name of his character in that game?
Oh,
Oh, 5 points. 5 points. Anybody?
I'm not gonna get it.
Yep.
Hold
All right.
on.
I'd have to choose.
Think for a minute.
It's similar to Vargas.
Yeah, Vargas. Yeah.
Vargas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Vargas, and he did a great job with his background.
So that's how you have 3 human fighters who are different people.
Yes.
Your background and your experience and how you
Yep.
could very well play a party of rogues and have very different characters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The boxman who's there to break into the safe is very different than the mastermind who put it all together.
And then they go through. You basically have an example. A lot of these backgrounds are from rules as written, and they reworded them a little bit, and then they gave you an example at the bottom about where to apply your ability scores, what skill proficiencies to take to be proficient in, or the skills to be proficient in, the tools to take, because
I really like a lot of these suggestions. I'd love to see
I think they're good, too.
a list 3 times this long,
yeah,
but I mean, that's easy in-house stuff.
yes,
And once with a couple of examples like this, it's you could easily put together, oh, well, my guy was a smuggler,
yep.
and this is how my background, or
Well, I'm
Yep.
sure they'll add some more
Performer.
options in there.
Yeah, and
sure.
to
Yeah.
your point, with the fighter, when you go through here, they have a gladiator, a guard, a soldier. That's all. So that's pretty much exactly what you're saying. And the only difference is how they spent their money.
And now I would, anytime you're doing a pre-roll like this, I don't know if I
feats.
just accept that feat that they give me.
Oh no! Yeah, right.
But
Take
what
a
am I
look at
doing
what
with
you
this
got. But
character, there
but-
might be a feat I need.
they basically
Right.
tell you, you write a background and then take a feat to fit the background. Spend your 50 gold.
Yeah.
Take
and
a
that's the
proficiency
flavor of it.
in a
Hey,
couple
I want to play a
abilities.
laborer, but instead of Dwarvish as my language, it's Dragonborn.
Right.
Whatever your background and your experience was.
This gives you the option to mix it up.
Yeah, so a
Those
lot
are-
of the next couple of pages is all of that.
Yeah, it's
Different
So
just,
is,
examples
is
of
the gold
these,
that they
not
get in the
much.
background, is that in addition to the 50 gold that you
that's
get?
what's left over from.
That's what's left over.
Yeah, that's an example of the equipment that you've spent the 50 gold on,
Yeah.
and you got the 2 left over. That's the way I figured it anyway. And then another example, that fighter is at the back, the Tavern Brawler. The last one's another fighter, right? But
Well, yeah, so like if you get to the soldier, equipment, so he's not even packing any armor. And he's got 14 gold left over. I don't think
He's not going to get any armor.
No,
sounds like he got fired.
With 14 gold.
Yeah.
Well, if you started with 50, you just got shafted right there, because I'm pretty sure that's not, you didn't spend 30, 36 on that. Arrows,
We're going to make that your
Jameson,
homework for the
English.
next episode. Trip is
That's
going to
just
go,
not-
and he's going to look that up, and he's going to let us know
That's right.
how the math works out. So once we get past that, we kind of get into a rules glossary. They kind of go through the change of the spells. Spells are no longer paladin spells, wizard spells, warlock spells, sorcerer spells. We have arcane, divine, and primal, which kind of fall into the categories you would think they would fall into. We get into them defining for us the D20 test and what a 1 and a 20 do, which I think is kind of funny.
Let's see. So there's also, so of course we touched on this earlier, feats. Each feat has a level. To take a feat, you must equal or exceed the feat's level. So we're getting into basically just prerequisites. Some of them are repeatable. In this example that they gave us, only one of them, the Magic Initiates, are repeatable, and each time you would change. You could do Magic Initiate, Divine, Primal, or Arcane. Let's see. Yeah, so then we get into these feats. The Alert feat. This is pretty interesting. You can, immediately after you roll initiative, you can swap initiative with the initiative of one willing ally in the same combat. You can't make the swap if the ally is incapacitated. So that's pretty great, if you've got that spell effect or fighter that you really want to be able to hit the enemy.
Yeah, some of the feats are good. The feats almost deserve some time to be able to go through them.
And what they provided here were all first level feats.
You really got to study through them and kind of see how you can stack them based on what you can do.
Yeah, and they touch on a couple of there's just a little bit of verbiage that's a little changed.
So again, like Magic Initiate, it is repeatable. You must choose a different spell list each time. You're going to learn 2 cantrips and a spell from the list. And then we get into that verbiage where it's a little different. But choose one first level spell from the spell list. You always have that spell prepared. You can cast it once without a spell slot. And you regain the ability to cast it in that way when you finish a long rest. So the difference I'm noticing is the other things are fueled by your proficiency bonus, so that's the number per long rest, versus this is just once. And then you can also cast the spell using any spell slots you have. But again, we get back into that intelligence, wisdom, or charisma is your spell casting ability for these spells. Choose when you select this feat. So that's fantastic. I mean, you could take this and add arcane spells to your divine casters,
Right.
known spells, and the one spell is always going to be prepared. So I mean, that's magic missile on your cleric.
Yep, definitely.
And 2 cantrips, firebolt and prestidigitation or something.
So overall impressions?
Is there not a class list in here? Did I miss that?
No,
Mm-mm.
There's no class
no,
list.
no.
Yeah, because I think there's got to be some changes coming to the classes.
I think
when
they've
you
got a
start
lot of
stacking
great
these
stuff to
feats in
work
here.
with here. I think could use like to see more content.
Oh,
Of course.
Yeah, I'm sure the content's coming. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just now really getting used to the 5e, and to take it and swap it up, I'd be curious to see what their timeline is on this release, and if it's coming out as a. Is it coming out as a 6th edition, or is it a supplement?
It is One D&D.
One D&D.
I guess
One
they didn't like
D&D.
They probably tested
No
it
more
and didn't like the
editions.
version. Didn't like the idea of 6th edition. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I imagine moving forward, this will just be a living, breathing entity that gets reshaped and
Yeah. So
the last edition.
something. I think he said specifically something to last for the next 10 years. So say 2024 to 2034.
So
right?
it's 6th edition.
Yeah. So pretty much by the time we're done, we won't have to worry about additions anymore. But overall impressions, yay, nay, mixed.
I have mixed opinions.
Mixed opinions?
I do.
I mean, I don't see Eldritch Blast on the arcane cantrip list. That's a problem.
That was something I saw. Somebody else, another creator, mentioned that too.
it's
That's a
in
big
the
deal.
finished product.
Yeah, I am also mixed, but I'm more to the yay, believe it or not, than I am to the nay on a
Interesting.
lot of it. Yeah.
So looking forward,
Yeah.
what does this make you excited? Like there's other. So this is the stuff they provided so far. I can't wait to see a revamped weapon system. Because the weapon system in 5e is lacking.
Yeah.
There's zero difference between a lot of weapons mechanically, which back in the day, that was half of the fun of
Oh, it was.
figuring out why you were,
Well, I think Tripp said that the next thing that's going to come out is going to be basically the next step. So we might see classes. We might, it's going to be the creation. But tell you what we want you guys to do. We want you guys to tell us what you think. Give us your opinions on the errata. If you have not gone there yet, you can go to dnd.com or D&D Beyond. They link to it. You can read it, download it, use it, play it. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us who you like. Tell us who you don't like.
That's right.
Tell us what you want to see. And like, subscribe, send me a check in the mail. It would be great.
It's been fun.
It's been fun. If you're tuning in and you waited to the end, man, you are with us.
That's right.
Heck yeah.
You're
Heck yeah.
hardcore.
So until next time, you guys have anything else to say?
Adios, amigos.
We look forward to doing more stuff for you, and in the future, who knows, we might have some source books or campaigns that
Oh, we've got a lot of material.
that
We
we
just
put
got to
together
start pulling it out
we
here.
might want to share.
Yeah.
Might wanna
Maybe
share
even
some
playthroughs. Yeah,
There's a
let us
lot
know.
of-
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of
what are you guys
tales
looking
left to
for?
tell from the Pythian.
Tales from the Pythian.